At first glance, the watercolor, Change the Distance, suggests a fragmented landscape, an abstract, dreamlike panorama where pyramidal structures and Enso-like orbs are chained together in an infinite sequence. The phrase, change the distance, is emblazoned at the bottom, urging us to reconsider our perspective. 3 distinct orbs dominate the foreground, each containing an image. The first holds a serpent's head, its mouth slightly open as if poised to strike. The second carries a human face, appearing contemplative, as though it is caught between recognition and transformation. The third, fainter and less defined, seems to dissolve into the chain of orbs stretching toward an unseen horizon. The pyramid in the background suggests something eternal, an anchor of stability amid the shifting elements. The repetition of forms creates a sense of rhythm, of a cycle moving through time. The artwork plays with perception. Is this an unraveling, a transformation, or merely a shifting of perspective? The presence of 3 primary orbs suggests a progression, perhaps from instinct, the serpent, to self-awareness, the human, and finally to transcendence, the dissolving form. The phrase, change the distance, serves as both a directive and an observation. Are we too close to the details, missing the whole? Or are we too far, failing to see the richness within each segment? Distance, in this case, is not just spatial, but also temporal, emotional, and philosophical. In Zen, distance is an illusion. What separates past, present, and future is only our perception. The Enso-like orbs call to mind the Buddhist idea of dependent origination, that nothing exists independently, and all things arise in relationship to one another. The serpent, the human, and the dissolving form suggest a progression, not in a linear sense, but in an ever-repeating cycle of self-discovery. The snake, often a symbol of desire or survival instinct, represents the unexamined mind, driven by impulses. The human face symbolizes awareness, the moment when one begins to question their reality. The fading third orb hints at enlightenment, a letting go of self, of attachment, and of perception itself. A Zen master might ask, what is the true distance between you and the present moment? The answer, of course, is that there is none. This painting resonates with hexagram 24, Fu, return, a moment of cyclical renewal. Fu speaks of the necessity of returning to the beginning, of seeing things with fresh eyes. The presence of the orbs suggests stages of transformation, much like the I Ching describes life as a series of cycles rather than a straight path. Alternatively, hexagram 56, Lu, the wanderer, reflects the idea of changing perspective. It speaks of a traveler, someone who must learn to adapt and view things differently with each step they take. Just as the title suggests, change the distance. The hexagram warns against stagnation of thought. The I Ching teaches that perception is fluid, and wisdom lies in knowing when to step forward, when to retreat, and when to simply observe. Lao Tzu tells us that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but he also reminds us that the greatest truth is found by standing still. Change the distance is both a call to move and an invitation to see clearly where we already are. The orbs in the painting could be viewed as snapshots of existence, each one reflecting a different aspect of self. The Tao Te Ching teaches that the way to wisdom is through surrender, letting go of the need to reach a final destination. The pyramid in the background, unshaken by time, suggests that what we seek is already present. Only our perspective needs to shift. Lao Tzu would say, distance is not in the world, but in the mind. Change the mind, and the distance will change on its own. A secular Buddhist view would suggest that change the distance represents our shifting relationship with the past. The serpent may symbolize raw experience, events that shaped us, but which we barely questioned at the time. The human face represents reflection, our attempt to make sense of our history. The final orb, fading, reminds us that memories and identities are not fixed. They evolve as we gain perspective. We argue that we often revisit the past seeking answers, but in doing so, we fail to see how our relationship to that past is constantly changing. The self we once were is not the self we are now. Instead of being trapped in a single version of our history, we can learn to see it differently. We often speak about creativity as a matter of perspective. What we create and how we see our own work is directly influenced by the mental distance we maintain from it. Too close, and we lose sight of the whole. Too far, and we become detached from the details that give it meaning. The painting's directive, change the distance, is a fundamental creative lesson. Sometimes, the best way to understand something is to step away and see it anew. The orbs suggest that every moment, every thought, is part of an unfolding process. The creative mind must be willing to shift perspectives constantly, to zoom in and out, to see both the serpent and the sky. Art, like life, is about playing with perspective. If it doesn't feel right, try changing the distance. The change. The distance painting is an exercise in perception. It suggests that what we see is not necessarily reality, but a matter of how we position ourselves in relation to it. The presence of the orbs, each containing a different phase of transformation, implies that all perspectives are part of a whole. The pyramid in the background serves as a reminder of stability, of something beyond perception, something that remains unchanged. The artwork does not ask us to move, but to shift the way we see. Whether we view ourselves from the past, present, or future, the truth is the same. Perspective is everything. Take a situation in your life that feels fixed, an assumption, a memory, an expectation. Now, deliberately change the distance. Imagine seeing it from far away, as if it were a story someone else told you. Then, imagine zooming in, focusing only on the details. What changes? What remains? What new truth emerges when you shift your perspective? Life is not fixed. The way we see it makes all the difference.